Welcome to the Creators here at SomeCity. Coming to you every Tuesday and Friday. Extended conversations that build community for creators videos by making what you make. Today on the Creators, Sharon Lester is a writer, and she also creates in a number of other artistic genres. Today she talks about her book, Tales from My Monkey Mind. So subscribe to our channel, comment, and most importantly, watch Building with Us as we build community with you.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to The Creators. We are coming to you, as we always do, from SomeCity headquarters in beautiful downtown Somersworth, New Hampshire. Our guest today on The Creators is a writer and artist of many different disciplines, Sharon Lester, and so welcome to The Creators, Sharon.
Thank you for inviting me.
Today we're going to be focused mainly on a fairly new book that Sharon has released called Tales from My Monkey Mind. And the first thing that I want to ask you about this book is the title. How did you come up with Tales from My Monkey Mind?
Well, it's from Buddhist studies. I've started delving into some Buddhist studies, and it focuses mostly on the mind and how it works, and it's referred to often as the monkey mind. So that's basically where it came from.
For the uninitiated out there, what is meant by that term monkey mind?
Well, if you start observing your thoughts, you'll see they're everywhere, especially if you sit down and attempt to meditate. You know, photographs of people meditating makes them look like their eyes are closed and they're very peaceful and calm. But I guarantee if you had a picture of their mind and what was happening, thoughts are everywhere, jumping from one thing to the next, and it's very difficult to get a calm spot. And so that's where the reference comes. It's learning how the mind works.
Yeah, it definitely is a thing for most people unless they train and really kind of get that, what's at the heart of meditation,
Right.
of being able to kind of shut off all that noise,
Right.
for at least a little bit of a period of time. Do you meditate, or are you able to?
Sporadically.
Sporadically.
Sporadically, yeah. I am more in. I had a very informal introduction to Zen in the 70s, and so that intrigued me. So it's more mindfulness practice, so that whatever I'm doing, I try to be present with what I'm doing, but the grocery list slips in there, and issues slip in there, so just to bring it back to where I'm at is the basic practice. I do occasionally attempt to just sit meditation.
When I think about that mindfulness practice, I've read some of Thich Nhat Hanh's books.
Right.
Are you a fan of his?
Right. I'm a fan of anybody who promotes mindfulness,
Yeah.
because it teaches us that we have some control in there, and otherwise we end up behaving in a completely reactive way. And once we learn that we do have some control over what thoughts we entertain and engage in and hold on to and expand on, we become puppets of our thoughts, and it doesn't have to be that way.
So there does seem to be that the mindfulness connection coming out of a sort of Buddhist philosophy. Tell me also about, in terms of your creative process in general, where did these different writings that you have, and of course there's there's vignettes, there's poetry, there's all kinds of short writings within this book.
Yeah. Well, that might have come from the fact that I have a short attention span. I'm not sure, but my writings. I'm working on a longer piece now, I think. But my writings up to now have been basically no longer than 2 pages. And I was thinking about this question of creativity. It's one of my favorite topics. And thinking back, because I haven't always been involved in creating in all different mediums. It started pretty much as an adult. And I was thinking it started pretty much at the same time that I started the Zen practice. And what occurred to me this morning thinking about this, and I've given creativity workshops to try to encourage people and to open up in that area. But what I realized this morning is a consistent thing with the Zen teachings and creativity is that you need to be able to be uncomfortable.
That seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, any creative step and the Zen teachings both take you to a place of not knowing. And that's a place of wonder. When you're in the condition of wonder, you don't know. And that's, wonder sounds wonderful. But when you're in the condition of not knowing, especially in our Western, the way we're educated through testing and through knowing and having the right answers. So being in that condition of not knowing, and when you're creating, you don't know what you're going to do. So I realized that through the years of that practice of the Zen practice of not knowing, that, and the interesting thing to me is that no matter how much practice there is, it's still uncomfortable. It doesn't get comfortable. And you have to be willing to go through that. You have to be willing to accept that discomfort to get to the other side.
So for Tales from My Monkey Mind, as I mentioned, it's a number of different styles of writing, and primarily short pieces. And it's your first book, right?
The first official book, yeah.
Okay. Any sort of notion of how long did it take you to write and then kind of accumulate the writings that went into this book?
That's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and it wasn't my idea. I was just doing it and accumulating them, and I had a friend, I still have this friend, who was very instrumental in deciding it should be a book and made it happen. And once I saw it in book form, I'm really thrilled, really pleased with it.
Speaking of the process, and you were mentioning, you have this sort of level of maybe uncertainty
Right.
that takes you into that creative process. But are you, the type of writer who makes yourself sit down and write, or do you mainly just go by inspiration?
Probably the latter. And this might be a good time to tell what I recall as the kind of mysterious event when an entire essay came to me when I was 12 years old. And I was riding in the car, and like I said, an entire essay came to me. It wasn't there in total at first, but there was a sentence that just popped into my mind, and then another sentence, and I knew there was more to come. Again, an intuition, and I thought if I just remember the first sentence, then I figured the rest would be there when I could get home and write it down. And the first sentence was, "We're all made of blood, flesh, and bones." So I just kept repeating that for the entire length of the ride, and when I got home, I wrote it down, and there was even a word that I didn't know that I changed to a word that I did know in this essay. And after it was written, I took it to the newspaper office, which was completely out of character. Didn't tell anybody in my house that I was doing that, and it was published in the newspaper. And the editor had written a preface to it saying, "I make way for another writer," which totally baffled me because I was going to be the Lone Ranger. And it was something that just didn't make any sense because, again, how can I write something and put a word in it that I didn't know? So since then, there have been other instances where complete poems have come, and not complete essays, but through the years I've learned when there's a sense, there's a physical feeling that happens. Often it's kind of an irritation or an off-balance thing that I've come to recognize that there's something that wants to be written. And my process, no matter if it's an idea that I have that I want to develop, or whether it's this situation where I feel like there's something that wants to come through, they're both, I try to get empty. I try to get clear and let whatever's going to happen come through. I guess that's the best way I can answer that.
And is part of your process, some writers, particularly creative writers swear by revisions. It's revise.
Yeah.
Never just take something as it sort of appears at first. But others, occasionally you'll find a writer who is just like, they don't swear by the whole revise idea. Where are you on that?
I guess I don't have very many rules. It has to feel complete to me, whether it's something that, and there are some things that are just so clearly inspired to me that I know they're coming through me, and I would like to read one of those poems that most recently the entire poem came through. And except for the last stanza, which I had to tweak a little bit to get the rhythm right for it, and there was a stanza I didn't put in it. Maybe I'll explain maybe after I read it why I didn't put in it. But I entered it in a contest for the town poetry contest, and it won. And it was awkward because I didn't feel like I could really claim it because I'd basically just written it down with no revision, except for that slight tweaking on the last stanza.
Yeah. Well, let's. I was hoping you'd do maybe a few short readings for us today, so that's probably a good segue
Sure.
into.
Okay.
If you want to do that now.
The poem is called Mama, and I typed it up so that I could see it. I wrote a little introduction to it. It says, my town library was having a poetry contest, and I decided to enter, and I really wanted to win. I sat down to write a winning poem and immediately came up with a rather long poem, but it didn't have what I thought it needed to win. I went to bed with the intention of trying again the next day. As soon as the light was turned out and I had settled in for good night's sleep, a stanza came into mind. I turned on the light, wrote down the stanza, turned out the light, and lay back down. Once again, as soon as I was comfortable, another stanza entered my mind. These were 5 rhyming lines coming to me with no forethought. When I had written the second stanza, I lay down again, intending to sleep. When yet another stanza came to my mind, I gave up trying to sleep and sat up and wrote until the poem was finished. Here is the poem, Mama, as I received it, with only a few minor adjustments to the meter in the last stanza. I sniff my way past the blueberry pie, sitting on the porch to cool. I don't make a touch, 'cause I knows that much, my mama don't raise no fool. I steps on up to the kitchen floor, all checkered in black and green, sees Ma over there in her snoozing chair. I tries not to slam the screen. She don't open her eyes, I move in, but she know I was there all right. If she don't know I was there, she say, pull up a chair, gonna fix you all a bite. Mama get up and shuffle to the stove, where it seemed she always been. All the tiles worn through from her shifting shoe while she's cooking food for kin. Mama don't talk much, but she told me this, for them you love to know it. Saying words is just air, to know's you care, get off your ass and show it. My mama don't swear, but she says sometimes lots of people is asleep. They feet is walking, they mouths is talking, but their consciousness is deep. You want 'em to hear what you have to say, first you gotta grab their ear. You could say a word they don't expect heard, and a good chance then they'll hear. My mama ain't smart in the usual ways, but she got real learning. She can't read a book, but she can read a look, and her heart fire's still a-burning. I sits in my chair as Mama plates food and brings for me to eat it. It's cornbread and greens, but it ain't what it seems. It's love, and you can't beat it. The stanza that was left out was stepping into the kitchen with the black and green checkered floor. And there was a section about one of the tiles being broken that had been broken by a tossed frying pan. And I just decided to leave that out. So I just am amazed that something like this can happen, because there's really, for me, there is no explanation.
How about is there maybe an essay or short fiction or prose piece from the book that you do for reading now too?
Let's see. Sure. I've talked a lot about Zen, and the book isn't all about Zen. This piece is called Zen. There are a lot of different topics that are touched on it. So this is titled Zen. In 1974, Robert Pirsig's best-selling book, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, introduced many of us in the Western world to the word Zen. In following years, many more books appeared on Western shelves presenting the history, meditation practice, and great teachers of Zen Buddhism. As the 70s ended, Zen seemed to disappear in state of interest to only a subculture group or individuals. I was one of those individuals. In the 1990s, Zen resurfaced in some very unusual places. Zen home decorating styles, gardens, candle fragrances, tea flavors, rock band names, body lotions, and music, to name a few. Light green tea that was discovered to be a healthy aid with antioxidants. Before you could say Om, there were green tea candles, soap, lotion, bath salts, in addition to tea on the market for sale. In typical American style, if a little is good, then more is better. If it's good for us in any way, it will be marketed, so we'll eat it, smell it, decorate our homes with it, and slather it all over our bodies. With the word Zen being used in such diverse areas, we have to wonder what it means. When we assume Zen means relaxing or simple, we're mistaking the pointing finger for the moon. Relaxing and getting simple are only pointing the way to help us create a condition within ourselves so we might be able to have the Zen experience, which is not exactly relaxing. It's wide awake. I say this as if I know. I do. I did. I do. I've had moments of awakeness, but I do have a tendency to nap. Okay, my naps are sometimes close to coma, but the point is, since Zen cannot be explained anyway, I might as well put in my 2 cents worth on the subject for the 2 seconds of experience I've had. Books about Zen begin by stating one way or another that Zen cannot be explained, yet hundreds of pages follow. What is being said on those pages? Things like, Zen is not what you think, and Zen is no thing. These sayings are fingers pointing to the moon. Since there is no way to give someone the experience of seeing the moon, all that can be done is give directions to where it can be seen. It's like this. If you've ever tried to direct a dog to see something across the room by pointing to it, you know they will usually look at your finger. They confuse your finger as the point of attention. With training, they can learn to look beyond your finger. We're not that different. This is the confusion with Zen. We must learn to look beyond the pointing finger. Writings are trying to get us to the experience. They are not explanations, since an explanation of Zen is impossible. Zen is as slippery as a New England ice storm and as reluctant to take form as liquid mercury. If you get it, you will know. But then you won't be able to explain it either. You might think, why so bother? Well, I don't know.
So we're here today on The Creators, coming to you from SomeCity in beautiful downtown Somersworth, New Hampshire. And we're here with writer Sharon Lester, whose book Tales from My Monkey Mind is available now. And I understand that it's not only available online, but also at a couple of our wonderful area bookstores. Where can people find this?
You can find it at River Run Books in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and Water Street Books in Exeter, New Hampshire, and also in my Etsy shop online.
And how did that, that's a no small achievement, to actually get one's publication into these area bookstores. There's so few of them left now, but they do such great things for, the area community and different artists. How did that come about that your book got into those stores?
Well, it was very uncomplicated. I went in and asked them. They are that supportive of local writers that they were very happy to have it there. And they were the first places that I wanted to approach. And when I had a magazine, a project to how to make a necklace that I wanted to submit to a beadwork magazine, and I thought, where did I want it to ultimately be? So I went to that magazine first rather than working my way up. So I used the same philosophy here. Those were the 2 stores that I knew I wanted them in, so I started right there, and it was very easy.
That's great. And I know that you also, you mentioned your Etsy site.
Yes.
You're also involved in the creative process in a lot of other different ways with artwork and different craft works and things like that. Can you talk about the other things that you do?
Well, let's see. The writing has always been there, like since I was 12, and it's something that I didn't think that much about. It was just something I did, like I breathed. The first craft that I started doing was making jewelry with wire. I was working in a craft store, and so part of my getting to know the products, I would try the different products there. So that I started out with wire. This was in the late 70s, and curling wire, making earrings with wire. And then when I discovered beads, put beads with them, and then findings with them. So I spent a lot of years developing jewelry and different ways of designing the jewelry and doing beadwork. And also started sewing, designing and making fabric bags. I like experimenting and making one-of-a-kind products and designing things and problem solving with it. And just recently, I've moved into doing painting, which is an entirely different process. So just working in the different mediums, I've done some sculpting with stone and with clay and metal. Every medium has its own personality in a way, and a requirement that you have to adapt to it and learn what its limitations are, try to push the limitations. And so that whole process of relationship with the medium is what I love and enjoy doing.
So I'm not really that familiar with Etsy, I have to admit. So how do people find your Etsy site?
My Etsy site, you go to Etsy, www.etsy.com, and then it would be shop/Mama Lester. It's MAMALESTER.
All right.
And there's a little bit of everything in there.
All right. That sounds good. So getting back to the writing, you mentioned earlier that you're working on something new. Some writers don't want to necessarily talk about what they're working on right now. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on?
I can tell you a little bit. It's something that's been popping in and out for a while, and I think it's popped in to stay. It has to do with identity and ego, and the notion that we create ourselves with names. I can't say too much more than that about it. It's
that's all right.
It's a process.
All kinds of not only writers, but various types of artists, prefer to keep things like under wraps.
Well, it's not so much under wraps as that I don't know it yet myself. It's
okay.
all setting down and letting ideas come to me.
Right, so you really are still in the midst of the creative process on that one.
Completely, yeah.
All right. Can we get you to do another reading or two from Tales from My Monkey Mind?
Sure. Well, I had mentioned earlier that my son and daughter-in-law are vegan, and that might have something to do with this poem that I wrote. There's a lot of dietary changes going on these days, gluten-free and all of this. This is called Dinner Invitation. Gary is a vegan. Val eats only meat. Nick and Chris have allergies to corn and milk and wheat. Nicole is a juicer. Pam eats mostly sweets. Rupert is eccentric, eating only organ meats. I want to have a party and invite every friend, but I have no idea of what invite I should send. It seems my only option is to say it's at my home. The date and time is such and such. The food is bring your own.
That is kind of a modern-day conundrum.
It is.
Now that you mention it. And well, we'll go with whatever you've selected for another reading, if you will.
This would be it. Ego. This is a poem entitled Ego. It's as if it's always there, standing in the wings, just waiting to run on stage at the slightest hesitation, invitation, provocation, irritation, isolation, trepidation, separation, regulation, complication, altercation, legislation, evaluation, particularly misrepresentation. It thinks it really should be me as the star of the show. I'm so much better than her, I'm the one who deserves the praise, the attention, the adulation, the awards, the applause, the pats on the back and on the head. Without me, she would be nothing much to speak of.
So that one wasn't inspired by a particular modern day politician, by any chance? No. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing some readings from Tales from My Monkey Mind, and
Thank you, Tom.
and for coming here and talking with us today on The Creators.
Thank you.
Sharon Lester has Tales from My Monkey Mind available now, and it's a collection of writings of various types. And so, once again, we appreciate you coming on the show. And meanwhile, we will see those of you again who have been joining us. And please, if you think of it, give us a thumbs up if you're so willing. Subscribe if you have not yet, please, and we will look forward to seeing you next time on The Creators.